Hi there everyone, it's Laurel here with a video showing you some easy Mother's Day cards. I'm going to make 3 cards in total. These are all fairly flat, so very easy to send through the mail and definitely no extra postage. This is a new die recently released from Catherine Pooler. It's called To the Point Cover Plate, and I went ahead and ran that through my Gemini Junior onto some just random colored cardstock. I had little scraps because I'm basically creating my own stencil here. And then I'm going to take some embossing paste. You can also use some whipped spackle, modeling paste, anything like that. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it through the stencil using my new palette knife here that I love because it's so flexible. I can really get into the nooks and crannies. Now this is going to look like a hot mess, but in my mind, I'm starting to build the shape of a heart. It's going to be a very organic, messy looking heart. But regardless, I'm pretty sure that you'll see the heart and when I'm done. So I'm just going in there and just really trying to build that out. I'm not using any kind of template or anything. It's all, I didn't want a perfect heart. I wanted this to be very fun and kind of freeing. So once I peel that cardstock / stencil up, you'll see what I mean. Hopefully you can see a little bit of the heart there. We're going to take this up a notch and we're going to apply some rose gold embossing powder from Wow. I'm going to apply it right over the top of that wet embossing powder, or embossing paste. I'm applying the embossing powder over the wet embossing paste. Because it's wet, the embossing powder is going to stick to it. I'm also going to go ahead and heat set that. I'm using my Wow dual speed embossing gun on the second heat setting so I can melt that powder, and you can see how it's becoming shiny and absolutely beautiful. So all the texture and the shine that you get and the dimension from the paste, it's really just quite pretty. To add a little more, I'm just flicking on some Perfect Pearls, which is just a very shiny pigmented liquid. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut apart my stamp. Don't wig out. You can mount it back how you want, but I like sentiments that are kind of in a straight line. I don't typically use sentiments that are multi-rows. I don't know why, so that's okay. I can just cut it apart. I'm good to go. You can mount it back the way it was originally intended just by putting it back on your acrylic block. Just use some really good scissors to cut it apart if you choose to do so. This is a great way to also stretch out your sentiments. I went ahead and freehanded the word ever using the Wow embossing pen, and I inked up the stamp with Wow embossing powder, sprinkled on that same rose gold embossing powder, and then heat set it there. So I kind of created my own custom sentiment by cutting apart the stamp and by freehanding the word ever. My handwriting is atrocious, don't judge me. So I'm popping up this panel with some foam dimensional tape, and this card is done. I absolutely love it. It is shiny and sparkly and just fantastic. Let's move on to the next card. This is a little heart. It was over in my stash, to be honest. I didn't cut it for this video. I just saw it and I'm like, yes. So I'm using that little heart, the negative space there, as a mask. That's masking paper, but I like to save my masking paper, so I taped it down. I'm so cheap. So anyway, I'm going to go in with a couple of different color inks, and I'm using this stamp set also from the release. It's called 1 in a Million Mom. It also has a coordinating die set as well. I'm using the smaller images. We'll get to that large bouquet for the next card. But I'm just going in with different color inks. Bellini, this is Aquatini. Bellini was that beautiful orangey color that I stamped. And then I'm going to go in with a final Grape Crush. This image actually has a little stem on it, so I'm going to stamp the stem in some parts and then without the stem in others. So I'm getting the look of 2 different flowers from one stamp, if you will. I'm choosing springy colors here. Because Catherine Pooler inks stay wet a little bit longer, I am zapping it with my heat tool just to be sure that everything is good and dry. And then I'm going to go in and apply some pink ink, this is Party Dress, with some makeup brushes I got off of Amazon. I have a whole video, I'm linking it to it up in the right hand corner, on these brushes and very unique ways to use them. I actually use them with water. For this video, I'm just doing traditional ink blending. But check out that video when you get a chance. I think you might like it. But these are, I've called them miracle blending brushes. They're makeup brushes. I got a whole pack for 15 bucks of various sizes off of Amazon, and I really like them. I decided to go in with the Bellini and go around the edges. Now, side note, when I first got these brushes, I did not like them. I was not getting these beautiful blends that I was seeing. So I did a live, got some feedback, did some trying out and practice, and then I'm in love with them. And I really encourage you to check out this video because I'm using them with water and it's super fun. Okay, so this is the Mom die, also from the release. I'm going to go ahead and color that die with the ink. I'm going to use Party Dress and Bellini. So I'm basically color matching, if you will. Also, another great way to use up your scraps. I have a ton of scraps of white cardstock and all various colors of cardstock. So this is a great way to do it. So this is another stamp I have cut apart off camera. And again, you can mount it the way you want it. It's okay to cut apart your stamps. You're getting good bang for your buck by, stretching it out. I like I mentioned before, single-lined sentiments. So this was actually a double line, so I simply cut it apart and, mounted it on my block in a single line. You know what I'm saying? Bam. So I also colored swiped my Bellini cardstock on some white, my Bellini ink on some white cardstock to get, again, more of a color matching. I needed a little border, I felt. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that Mom die down kind of right over the center of that heart. And then I'll go ahead and stamp the sentiment in Party Dress. And this is what I mean. Originally it was a stacked sentiment, so I just cut it and mounted it so it's a single line. And I love it that way. Finishing touch here, I'm using some Nuvo Jewel Drops, and I'll also use Nuvo Dream Drop, which I have a whole video on that later. That's a new drop to the Nuvo line, and I do love it. So that's just some finishing touches. If you use these drops and you get little peaks, just give it a good whack on your desk, like your cardstock. Give it a good whack, and those peaks will settle down into place without any problems. Moving on to the third and final card, I am using that beautiful cluster of florals from that same 1 in a Million stamp set. I'm going to ink it up with some Twilight ink, which is a very soft gray. This is not a permanent ink. The only permanent ink in the Catherine Polar line so far is the Midnight Black ink. So because of this, I am going to sprinkle on some clear embossing powder and heat set it because I'm going to be doing some watercoloring. So this is some watercolored cardstock. So I'm just, trying to be lazy and not get paper, and I made a big, huge mess. Usually I put a paper underneath when I'm putting embossing powder on to catch it and then funnel it back in. I got lazy and made a huge mess. So don't be lazy like me. So this is, let's see, what colors are we using? We've got Bellini, Aquatini, Party Dress, and, ooh, what's that yellow? It'll come to me in a minute. Oh, it's Sana. Sana, Bellini, Party Dress, and Aquatini are the 4 colors here. This is going to look like one hot zippity-doo-dah mess, okay? These colors, whatever. I love pink and yellow together, by the way. I just love it. I got messy with the leaves, and it's just going to look like a hot mess. I'm using the same brush. I'm not even cleaning off my brush in between, but that's okay. There is a method to my madness usually. Okay, usually. Note that I said that. Here I'm going in and adding yellow. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just created mud, but it's okay. I'm going to keep winging it. I'm going with it. This took no time at all to do whatsoever, because here's my plan. Once I get all my little leaves colored. And here I am going to just mist the mess out of this cardstock with some water. And then I've got this little blower thing. I don't know what it's called. I don't know. It just blows air. It's, if you don't have this, you can just use a straw, whatever. I'm just kind of blowing the ink around, if you will. That's why I didn't take much care when I was actually adding the color to the florals, because I knew I was going to do this. So I'm dabbing up some color, little puddles that maybe I don't like. I like the hard lines when watercolor dries. Some people don't. They like it more neat without the little lines. I personally like a bunch of lines. So I'm just going and just constantly squeezing this little tool. Again, you can use a straw and just blow through the straw if you want to, or you can kind of move some of the color around with your heat tool if you have that. But once I'm happy with kind of how all the water is kind of expanded beyond the floral cluster, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. I am using the, again, Wow dual gun, and I'm actually heat setting this on the lower level, so level 1, so I'm not blasting out a lot of heat, and that also keeps my paper from warping beyond belief. So I love that little tool. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment with some blackjack ink, which is a very dark gray. And I just think this is just like really pretty. I decided I wanted a little border over there to the left, so I grabbed some of the pattern paper that also is in the new release here with Catherine Pooler. You saw how I just basically held up every single pattern there was until I found one that I liked. So I cut a strip with my trimmer there, and then I'm just going to glue the little border down directly onto the card. Now, again, my goal was to keep all of these fairly flat because these are cards I'm going to mail. So you could die cut that floral, poke it up. You could die cut portions of that. There's some individual dies in that coordinating die set as well. But since my goal was kind of flat, one layer, and no extra postage, I kind of kept it as is. So here's a look at this finished card, and I just love how all the ink just kind of blew everywhere all over the place. And here's a couple looks at the other card. This one is probably my favorite for sure. No probably about it. It's my favorite. And then this one, I just love all the little colors here. So I really used about 4 to 5 ink pads, you know, for all of these cards, and that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Here's a couple videos you might want to check out, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.